talk about what about the gamer inspiration for the protagonist of the Thrones and Bones, Frostborn?
Karn Corlunders.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so I had created Theana, and she was the. I mean, at that point too in the narrative, I did what you should never do, because you should start from character. But I was an editor, as I mentioned, for 15 years, and all of my friends were successful writers, or TV producers, or comic book writers, or famous artists. And I was really, really kind of afraid to put my stuff out there alongside of them. And I thought, going back to that idea that ideas are not, that we don't originate ideas, that they exist somewhere outside of us. I thought, if I just make this world so authentic that you can't argue with it, then my ability to write it won't matter, because I'm not writing it. I'm transcribing it. I'm bringing it through. And so I wrote like 40,000 words of world building. And I started with the Norse-inspired culture, thinking I could like start at the edge of the world, and then I would not have to worry about the rest of the world until I found out whether or not I could even write. But as I started working out their history, I started like paralleling what the actual Scandinavians were doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they went to France, they went to England, they went to Constantinople, they went to Canada. They probably went to the moon for all I know. And every time they butted up against a culture, I then created my world's analog of that culture. So before I ever plotted anything, I had 50,000 words of multiple countries with languages and religious pantheons and histories going back 5,000 years. And I had this whole world taking shape. And this is also around the time that I was starting to get back into role playing by buying campaign settings and immersing myself in all the wonderful world guides. And then my wife was like, well, you have to have a male protagonist too. You can't just have a female protagonist. You've got to have a boy protagonist. And because I hadn't planned on creating Karn at the time. And then I thought, well, Theana, it's a good character tip that every character needs a problem, but they also need something that they're really, really good at. If you think of something like How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup's problem is that he's not a big muscular Viking. He lives in a society of Vikings that only respect your ability to swing an axe, and he cannot. But he's also exceptionally good at making things. He's really good at that. No one around him values that, but he's really, really, he's a brilliant inventor. And characters need to have something that they excel at. And Theana excelled at sports. She was a huge, very physical character. And so he couldn't excel at sports. So I thought, well, if it's not sports, what's it going to be? And in real life, the Vikings played a board game called Hnefatafl that they played quite enthusiastically until it was eventually replaced by chess. And so I thought, he's a board gamer. And then I went from there and was like, well, the gamer personality is going to have been the same. The way that we're about our Xboxes and our Nintendos today, they would have been with boards. And so I wrote him as a modern day gamer. I mean, not with colloquial English, but I wrote him with the same attitude as a gamer. And it was a little bit around that time that that article popped up about that Egyptian D20.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Like, yep. See, there've always been gamers. There's nothing changes. And so that's how he became the board gamer. And then as I wrote that novel, I originally I was just going to use Hnefatafl, but we don't have an agreed upon rule set for that. We have rules reconstructions, and they're quite different. There's many different versions of the game, and they differ on things as basic as how many squares there are on the board, and whether or not you use dice, and whether the king exits just through the corners or from any side. And so eventually I was like, you know what, I need to know what the rules are. And since there are no one set of rules, I might as well make my own. So I took rules from different versions and I combined them, and I made up some of my own rules, and I spent about a week playtesting. And then my two nephews at the time were chess champions in the state of Alabama, both of them. And I took them to Starbucks and let them play each other, and they played each other over and over again for about 3 hours and loved it. So I knew I had something. We ended up publishing the rules in the back of the game. And again, in the back of the book. Yeah, in the back of the book. And then we published them again in the role-playing game.
So that's everything coming kind of in a circle. Not only are there games about the Thrones and Bones world, but the Bones world was generated from a game.
Well, it's really in a circle because I started with Edgar Rice Burroughs, and book 5, The Chessmen of Mars, John Carter fights on a live chessboard. And spoiler, you have to do that in the first adventure in the in the Thrones and Bones campaign setting in the sample starter adventure.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and all of that jazz. It really helps a lot. But also, please check out The Cultists, the web series on this channel about modern-day D&D playing Lovecraftian cultists who just want to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who just don't understand. Season 1 is on the channel now. But also, please check out my YouTube channel. I have over 150 videos on tabletop games and the fantasy genre. If you've enjoyed this video, you might enjoy many of them as well. I look forward to seeing you for them and many more videos to come. Later.